Hola, ¿qué tal, my gente? I am so excited to have a woman that I've known for so many years. Finally, we're able to have this conversation. We are speaking today to Nancy Marmolejo. Nancy helps entrepreneurs, executives, founders, and thought leaders who want to create a greater level of impact, legacy, and contribution. I've actually coached with Nancy, and I can tell you she does get to the heart of what makes a person tick and help them leverage that to make a lasting imprint on the world. Along her path, she's also collected over 100 media credits, received awards for creativity and innovation in business, showed up in 5 books and counting, and she holds a master's degree in multicultural education. Booyah! She is a fire starter. She's super humble, so she won't really fully tell you how much of a fire starter she is, so let me just brag a little bit. She's a total fire starter. Gosh, Nancy, was it in like 2007 that I coached with you?
Might have been. It was a long time ago.
It was the Viva Visibility days. Actually, it was Comadre Coaching. So Comadre Coaching and Viva Visibility were some of my first coaching lessons, and it was how I first started to go online. So for anyone who follows me out there on social media, you have Nancy to thank for that, because she totally helped me to get over myself and stop being so flipping concerned about my privacy and what people think of me, and, you know, paranoia about somebody to get my kids and all of that.
I'm laughing over here.
Please do, because this is real. This is real. These are all the worries that we have when we get online and when we're putting ourselves out there and when we're getting vulnerable. These are all very real things that happen to us when we want to start our business, or we want to start promoting our business, or we just want to start getting more socially active. And you really helped me in that. So with that being said, I really wanted this to be about you, and I wanted to interview you, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the culture that you were brought up in.
Wow. Oh, well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me here. And I just have to say, you are a person who is so inspirational, and you've always been somebody who I've loved, from watching me Vida Loca way back, and then getting to know you as a friend, and watching you grow and open yourself up to growth and change, and the way that you're impacting people's lives. It's beautiful. And,
thank you.
I kind of feel like I'm like the stage mom. You know, there are a lot of really powerful Latinas who have gone out and done some great things in the world, and I know that I've been connected to them, but I look at myself kind of like that stage mom, like, come on, honey, get out there and shine. And I don't necessarily have to be out there with you. I just want to push you out there and say, I see what you're capable of, and I see what you can do. And that's something, you know, you ask about the journey. I think that we all have these inherent qualities in us that have always been there. And I've always been the kind of person who can really see a person's strengths that they don't always see for themselves. And that's really natural. Most of us don't see our strengths because we can't see ourselves. Our eyes are on the outside of our heads looking outwards. We can't necessarily see ourselves. We can see everybody else. And when you have somebody who can just honestly and lovingly reflect something back to you and say, you know what, you have this ability, or you have this impact on people, I think it's important that we do that for each other. But I know that that's something that I do really well, and I've been able to work around that and make that my business. Telling people what to do, it's awesome. And I'm a professional mandilona.
I love it. Yes, and it comes from such a great space, because your background as a teacher was really helpful in that.
True. So the journey that I took is I grew up in a big family. My parents stayed together for 52 years until they both ultimately passed away, rest in peace, and really learned a work ethic and a love of family and how to work together as a team. My siblings and we all went to work for my dad, and so we had to learn how to get things done and to get along when people say you have to be professional, we learned that at a really early age. When I was 14 and wanted to cop attitude and, roll my eyes and raise my lip, I couldn't really do that because I was working the cash register for my dad. And, I had to put that stuff aside. So I learned at an early age how to show up in a professional way, but then also at the same time being able to express being myself. And I think what I learned growing up in around a family business is that you can be professional and you can also be yourself because you're the one making the rules. And I could see how there was this element of freedom that was associated with being an entrepreneur. And it's sort of like my art form is that creativity part of me loves to create work that if I want to sleep in one day, I can. And if I want to hang out and do nothing, I can. Or if I want to travel and go to a conference, I can. And it's all related to my work. I didn't do that immediately. After I went to school, I wanted to be a teacher because I felt really called to that. And a lot of, if you're Spanish bilingual and you couldn't decide what to do in college, you ultimately end up they're like, hey, you should be a teacher. And I was good at it. I was really good at it. I ended up getting my master's degree in multicultural education. I learned a lot about learning styles and how everybody learns a little bit differently and how some kids are identified as not being that bright when really the teachers weren't that bright because the teachers didn't know how to reach those kids and how they learn. So I've got all this experience rolling along like a big tumbleweed, family business, big family, yearning for freedom, becoming a teacher, learning styles, all of these things. And I think everything's just a stepping stone. When my daughter was born, I just decided I didn't want to go to work as a teacher anymore, and it was time for me to create that work that I love, that work that I could be home with my daughter, that work that if I wanted, if I didn't get a good night's sleep the night before, I didn't have to show up bleary-eyed and trudge my way through it. I had the freedom and flexibility to write my own rules. I absolutely love that. So that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 15 years or so.
One of the points that you mentioned was that a lot of kids grow up feeling that they're not that bright, and a lot of it is because we're stuck in someone else's agenda. We're stuck being taught what we're supposed to learn according to someone else's agenda and not according to maybe what our core is supposed to be doing, like who we are as spiritual beings, as human beings, as what our gifts are. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, this is one of my favorite subjects. What's so cool about it is that this is something that I did as a teacher, but it's something that I do now. I am an executive coach, leadership coach. I work with people around personal branding, and it's really like, who are you? What do you stand for? What are you great at? How are you going to impact the world? What are you here to create? Those are basically the questions that I bring to people and help them define for themselves. So it worked out great in the classroom, because I had students who, if I asked them, who are you? They'd say, oh, I'm a burro. I'm not smart. I'm slow. Everybody had put all these labels on them. And I said, I don't know who told you that, because I noticed that you're really great at X, Y, and Z. And just like reflecting back to people, like, you are not unintelligent. You're actually quite smart. You know a lot more than I do in a lot of things. So I had to convince people that. And then I work now with, whether it's somebody who's building a career or somebody who's building a business, they might hit the wall and say, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm just like everybody else. And I say, wait. You are not just like everybody else. And it's just like my students, I have to reflect back to them. Like you, Angel, you're so empathic. You have this empathy. You can meet somebody and instantly lock into their emotional state and uplift them. You meet people who they just want to be acknowledged and be seen, and you see them, and that's a real gift. So that's something, that you bring to the table that is probably one of the reasons why you're so successful at what you do. And so what are those things inside all of us that are these special strengths that are not always measured by an intelligence test or a skills test or a personality test? They're a little bit more intangible, but they're real. And they're what I call our deep genius. And everybody has it. Everybody has it. And the part of us that can't see it or doesn't believe that it's possible for us, that's what keeps you back from being able to be fully happy, from being able to fully embrace your life and gratitude and your potential.
For me, having worked with you so many years ago and so many iterations of my own brand, and I'm talking about on a personal level and also on a business level, there has to be a way to sort of fuse all of your life experiences into something magical. And I think you do that really well. And for me, I was so at the beginning of even exploring that I could step outside of the traditional job. And I mean, I tiptoed. It was like a 10-year tiptoeing process for me out of, a job into finally creating a business. Even my business as it evolves, I have still so many questions. One of the questions I always like to ask is, what was the biggest challenge for you, and what are some of the things that you do or did and you continue to do on a regular basis that helps you elevate out of those types of challenges?
Oh, these are great questions. Okay, so I'm going to start off by sharing, like, a challenge of mine is very similar to yours, and it happens to a lot of us. It's that tiptoeing, which is really being hesitant. And when you look behind, why am I being hesitant? We can say all sorts of stuff on the outside, like, oh, well, I'm just trying to, I'm thinking of my family, or, oh, blah, blah, and really that's BS. What it is we're scared. What are we scared of? That's where it starts to get real. When we start to get honest and it gets real. What are we scared of? I'm scared. Okay, I'll tell you mine. Like when I first started out, especially in my business. Okay, so I'd been a teacher, so I was, in a classroom with the door closed. Nobody knew who I was. And then suddenly I put my business out online. Like, uh-oh. What if somebody sees me and calls me out? What if somebody says, oh, she doesn't know anything? Or what if somebody, like this was, before all these trolls that come out on social media, but that was always my biggest fear. Like, what if somebody says something or does something or targets me? There was that fear of visibility, that vulnerability of speaking my voice, speaking my truth, and being shut down and shut up. Not unlike what happens today, especially right now with the Me Too has my reality. This was my experience. And then suddenly you have a bunch of people going in and saying, oh, that can't be true. Come on, you're exaggerating. So you have like all these things that go inside of our heads that give us the stop. And in the meantime, what happens is we tiptoe for 10 years. The challenge is convincing ourselves not to take action because we're afraid. What will people think? What will people say? They don't know me as this. They know me as the follower. They don't know me as the leader. What if they ridicule me? What if? So that's number one. And I think that hits a lot of people. That's what keeps a lot of people from change. Everybody's always known me as this. It's like when an alcoholic stops drinking and they are like, whoa, I don't have friends anymore. You have to find a new set of friends. You have to become a new person. You might lose friends when you start to change. Because those friends, if they're really your true friends, they're going to accept you as you change and embrace you and support you as you grow. As a practice to keep all that in check is just anything and everything that can keep a positive mental attitude. That could be my spirituality and meditation, focusing on gratitude, and being really honest, like looking at forgiveness. This, like looking at like, where have I screwed up? Whose forgiveness do I need to ask? Who do I give forgiveness to? Just really cleaning up all of that inside stuff. We're never done. So if you're hooked on Oprah Super Soul Sunday and she recommends a book or something, I say go out and get it. Or if Angel's telling you, go and, read this book or do that and here's how to be more positive, do it, because that stuff works. And what it does is it puts all those fears at bay. It gives you more confidence. It gives you more courage. Changes your life.
Yeah, it does. I also just want to spend a little more time talking about your spiritual journey as well, because you are one of the few people that I ever saw just say, yep, this is who I am. And I mean, really early on. I think more people do that now, but really early on, you're like, yep, this is me Aztec dancing. You shared an altar for Dia de los Muertos, and you explained what that was about. So I thought this was a great segue into one of the things that I just find so amazing about you and your transparency. Let's talk about your spirituality and what part that plays in your life.
Oh, that's so cool. Because when I was growing up, I went to Catholic school for 12 years, but I never really felt like, I always felt like there was, like, is there something more? Can we add to it? And I was always told, no, this is what you get. And then I had a teacher in high school who had traveled to India and started talking to us about, like, cosmic consciousness. It's like, whoa, this is cool. And he had worked with Mother Teresa, and all of a sudden I was like, I knew there was something else. There was more. And then I think might have been around the age of 20 or so, and I was going to college, and I started like taking classes in Chicano studies and learning more about my indigenous ancestry and the indigenous spirituality that's connected to those of us who share that heritage, and just all of that, and how it mixes in with Catholicism. And this is why my grandmother had all that stuff on her altar. That's Catholic, and it's old, indigenous, Azteca, Mexica, what have you. And so that became really fascinating for me. I started in my 20s just on a search of, like, going deeper into my own roots and identity, and discovered going to, like, danza, Aztec dance, and ceremonias that were a part of that, and meeting some of the Native American relatives from the north who invited us to sweat lodges and the Sundance and various ceremonies, and it was wonderful and fascinating, and it really connected me. And now, as I'm nearing elderhood, which is kind of funny and weird all in and of itself, I'm in a circle of women who old traditional stuff, we're not just in one slot. I've learned how to learn from other cultures, and to, we have some of our sisters in the circles who are African American and bring some of their traditions, and we have our indigenous sisters who bring their traditions. And really what we realize, we're all just these earth-loving mamas who want the planet to stay on, and we want the people to be happy, and we want people to enrich themselves and have better lives. So that's kind of where I run and roll, and I'm more accepting and loving of people from all paths. I have very good friends who are very, very devout, and because I hear the truth in their beliefs. And I have sisters who are Latina Muslim, and I hear their truth. And so now I guess I've expanded as I get older to see that, we're coming from this place of love. And for each person, it might interpret itself a little bit differently, how they want to pray, how they want to worship, and that's all good. I'm not going to say one way is better than another. I just love that anything that helps a person connect to their heart, be coming from that place of love, and want to share that with those around them. That's my spirituality now, is just the church of love, and being around people who also want to worship at the church of love, because I think that's what our world needs right now.
Amen to that. I'm so, so grateful that you were willing to share it with me and with our listeners. So one last thing is, how can our listeners find you?
Well, let's see. On Instagram, I'm Deep Genius Firestarter. You said I was a fire starter, and that is correct. Deep Genius Firestarter. And I think on Instagram, I'm not super strategic about Instagram. I'm not out there telling everybody positive, motivating thoughts. Some days I just show you a picture of my cat sleeping on a couch. So if that's your thing, I'm also on LinkedIn if you're more corporate and professional. and that's where I really behave myself, is on LinkedIn. So you can look up me, Nancy Marmolejo, and then Twitter, Nancy Marmolejo, Facebook. I mean, you just put my name into a search engine, you're going to find a whole bunch. You'll probably find some old pictures of me from, like, you know, me and Angel with 2005 hair, eating Oaxacan food for sure. And then my website is talentandgenius.com, all spelled out, TalentandGenius.com. And that's really if you're interested in learning about working with me or having me come and like do a workshop at your job site, or have me speak, or something of those nature, you know, media contacts, all that good stuff. So I try to make myself as accessible as possible.
For sure. And I thank you for that, and I thank you for this awesome interview.
This is Angel Aviles with Living Firme. We are so happy to bring you this kind of inspiring content. We hope that it is indeed transforming your mindset so that you can have a wonderful 2018 and beyond. Thanks so much for listening.